to a cashless society. This is something that's been ongoing for quite some time. But I just want you to stop and think for a moment how this has been advanced by their fake pandemic that they'd planned. Because we've been told for a long time that cash was bad. You know, except when Obama puts a plane load of it and sends it to Iran of other currencies and so forth. No, that was good. That was good. And it wasn't a bribery, and we weren't paying ransom to. No, that was just good. And it was necessary that he use foreign currency so that he could avoid the laws against paying these people. So he used, I didn't violate the law. I used foreign currencies to bribe them and pay off this. But no, for other criminals who don't have a flag and an anthem, we're getting rid of that too. But if you don't have a flag, an anthem, and a uniform, then use of cash like that is an evil thing. And so if you use cash, that automatically means that you are a terrorist, a money launderer, and a criminal, like Barack Obama and his administration. But that has been the narrative for quite some time. And I remember going back in the 1990s, they would come after people as they were beginning to ramp up civil asset forfeiture. They would try to make a statement that this had some kind of a connection to the drug business, this cash. We're going to take this cash, going to charge this cash with a crime, and I'm going to stick it in my pocket and take it back to the police station. I'm not charging you. I know you weren't selling drugs. I have no evidence of you selling drugs. I'm not going to charge you. I'm not going to give you a trial. But your cash, I mean, I just stuck it in front of the nose of my dog here, and he tested positive on it, right? He alerted to that. And it's true. You know, if you did a test, you could find traces of cocaine on most U.S. cash. So that wasn't much of a stretch to say that that was the case. But that was the argument for the longest time. Well, it fuels illegal activity, you know, like what the Obama administration did. But it's moved on to a whole new level. Oh, you can catch COVID now from cash. And not only that, not only did they frighten people about using cash, but if you can't get out and go to the store and hand somebody something, well, then if you're going to buy something, people lock down and they're doing so much commerce on the internet that look at what has happened to Amazon and Jeff Bezos, and just, you know, straight to the moon without even a jet rocket, right? It's just the stack of cash that he's got. This if he can climb that thing. And so everybody's buying stuff online. Everybody is paying online and not using cash because we're locked down. And so that was the other part of it. But when we look at the fact that, you know, most stores are shut down, or the people who would likely use cash don't want to wear a mask to go out. You got the small businesses that would be accepting cash. They don't have it. Well, I went to the grocery store with my wife before they started all this mask mandates, and they had signs up saying we don't have any coins, because about the middle of June, the Federal Reserve told everybody, we don't have coins. We got a coin shortage. Seriously, you think people are hoarding coins? Why? Why would they hoard coins? I mean, they're not made out of silver, certainly not gold, but they aren't even made out of silver anymore. They're just slugs, placeholders, right? A penny, it's not worth enough for you to even expend the effort to pick it up. But that helps to keep people from using cash, because it's like, well, we're going to round up it. Oh, that seems like a rip-off, if it doesn't really matter that much. And so it's another discouragement for people to use it. It's another indication that this is all being manipulated. As Claudio Grass says, the COVID crisis is supercharged the war on cash, with cash being presented not just as a danger to society and national security, you know, because only criminals use it, but also as a direct health hazard due to coronavirus. We're being pushed towards digital alternatives, and it's being massively reinforced. This is another big part of their agenda. For example, in May, you had the World Economic Forum. These are the people who run Davos. They published an article in their Global Agenda publication. That's the name of it, Global Agenda, because that's what this is, a global agenda, strongly supporting the mass adoption of digital payments for the sake of public health, of course. Everything is for the sake of public health now. Every one of the measures that they want to do completely controlling your movement, tracking you everywhere the entire UN agenda that we've seen implemented in China. Now it's all being done, and it's being done for public health. And digital currency, cashless currency, is a big part of that. In China, already in 2019, 80% of consumers are using mobile payments a year ago. In the U.S., it was less than 10%. And now that is rapidly changing. And as the COVID experiment was being rolled out in China, they introduced a new digital yuan. And it's been in development for more than 5 years, right? This is not a response to COVID-19. This is something they've been planning on, but COVID-19, like all of these elements, provides them a justification to move forward. So they rolled it out in April in 4 Chinese cities, and they are going to be rolling it out nationally very soon. And we're going to be doing the same thing. And it will replace physical legal tender. A big part of this, folks, to understand is that the Federal Reserve and the central banks globally had already painted themselves into a corner in the way that they responded to the global recession in 2008, 2009 by creating an even bigger bubble. This is one way that they can avoid the responsibility and the guillotines, as Michael Bloomberg put it. And it also allows them to move forward with what they'd always planned on doing anyway, and that is to have everything move to digital cash so that there is no privacy. You know, we talk about, well, hey, cryptocurrency, that's cool because you could do it completely privately. You could move money across international borders and so forth. No, it's not going to work that way. Not going to work that way. You go to digital cash, and they're going to be using that to track you. As a matter of fact, if you look at Facebook, when Zuckerberg came up with his Libra currency, what did he have in his white paper? Just one little phrase there in the middle of the white paper that said it all. The way that he was trying to sell this, and of course he wasn't able to sell this because they're going to do their own cryptocurrency. They're going to manage it themselves. But he thought he could sell it to them if he made it clear that he was going to make it a de facto global ID. That's right there in the white paper. And now we have a new law that's being proposed in the U.S., which would basically kill cryptocurrency. If you think that it's going to be private, think again. It's called the Lawful Access to Encrypted Data Act, or LEAD. As Simon Black, Sovereign Man, says, in other words, move over, China. The land of the free will lead the way in destroying the last remaining freedom of its citizens. Privacy, encryption. Yeah, we're going to take that away, too. We'll be right back. Stay with us. All right, one of the things that they are corralling us into, kettling us, if you want to talk about the police tactic of handling people who are demonstrating, they kettle you, they surround you and move you into an area. And what we're being kettled into is forced vaccination. And we know where this is coming from. It's coming from Bill Gates and so forth. If you look at the World Health Organization, in 2008, they got an estimated $281 million, the WHO did, from the U.S. The second highest contributor to the WHO was Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, the second and third top financiers of the WHO. Now that President Trump has moved out of the World Health Organization, we have had, nevertheless, we've had President Trump supporting Gavi and supporting vaccines without any restraint. As I pointed out, that $286 million that we were given to WHO, we gave $450 million to Moderna to develop a vaccine, similar amount to Pfizer. We gave $1.2 billion to AstraZeneca to manufacture vaccines, and a similar amount to another country. So it's just ramping up very rapidly. And as a matter of fact, I want to play for you real quickly here a video clip from President Trump proudly talking about his commitment to Bill Gates's Gavi. Let's run that clip.
Gavi operates with great transparency, and Boris Johnson is somebody with tremendous respect for you and everything you do. He called, he said, "Do you think you could do something maybe around the Oval Office or right by the Oval Office?" I said, "Why not?" It happens to be right behind me. As the coronavirus has shown, there are no borders. It doesn't discriminate. It's mean, it's nasty, but we're going to all take care of it together. It's great to be partnering with you. We will work hard. We will work strong. Send my regards to Boris, and good luck. Let's get the answer.
There you go. Yeah. As I said, the question is President Trump passive or is he partnering? Well, there you go. He's partnering with Bill Gates, partnering with Gavi. The Gavi Alliance, Trump's support came in the first ever global vaccine summit. Of course, it was done virtually because, we've got to maintain the premise that everybody's afraid of this. A virtual global vaccine summit. First one they did. Surpassed the goal of $7.4 billion that they wanted. Instead, they raised $8.8 billion, securing commitments from most major nations around the world. Gavi received even a $5 million donation from the Rockefeller Foundation. They stated that this success in fundraising will go not only to routine immunization programs, but it'll also help the public-private partnership play a major role in the rollout of a future COVID-19 vaccine. All right, I've been talking about the cashless society, the coming vaccine, and joining us now to talk about this global rollout. Because as he pointed out, it is a global issue, isn't it? It is a global plot. Joining us now is Catherine Austin Fitts. You can find her website, Solari.com. Also on Twitter, you can find her at The Solari Report. The Solari Report on Twitter. Joining us now is Catherine Austin Fitts. Thank you for joining us, Catherine.
David, always a pleasure. How are you?
Oh, doing great, I guess. Kind of depressed as usual as I look at this rolling out, but it looks like all the pieces are falling into place for their side, doesn't it?
I used to have a pastor would say, if we can face it, God can fix it.
That's right.
I think
right.
I think the depression of facing what's going on is sort of part of what it takes to get to the other side. So I continue to be an optimist.
Every day, as I was saying to Pastor Waddell in the last hour, I said every day it's a question: do you trust God, and and what do you fear? I mean, if you look at this, quite frankly, you and I both know that the odds are. I mean, these people, the power that they've got, the plans that they've had for a long time, and to watch how all this stuff is just falling into place and how rapidly it is falling into place, I would have absolutely no hope if I didn't have hope in God. But God is bigger than all of this, and we'll just see what happens.
I think they're absolutely going to fail and fail spectacularly. Now, what I don't underestimate is their ability to kill a lot of people on their way to failure.
That's true.
Because I think, I call this the injection fraud. I have a very popular article called The Injection Fraud, and I don't call these vaccines. I don't think they're vaccines. Under the law, vaccines are medicine. Mm-hmm. And these are tracking devices. These are injectable credit cards. This is part of the global reset. So the bankers got together at Jackson Hole last August, and they approved a plan called Going Direct. And Going Direct means they can build the smart grid train tracks. The last mile is into your home and your neighborhood, and then the last inch is into your brain. And that's why they keep trying to shoot heavy metals into all of us. Yeah. And so I think this is part of getting a much more centralized, immediate control in the financial system direct into every human being. So this, in one sense, this is a mark of the beast. Any Christian knows what this is.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
but
absolutely.
I don't call these vaccines. I think it's a fraud to call them vaccines. So, under
and you're not the
law,
only one. I've gotten a lot of people contact me and say, I've got a relative who's a doctor or a nurse or whatever, and they're not anti-vaccine, but boy, they're really anti this COVID-19 thing because they know it's not going to be tracked. And if you look at the company that is being fast-tracked the most, that is the lead, and of course, our vaccine czar, Moncef Slaoui, comes from Moderna, but that company has never produced anything that has ever gone to market, and no product, no medicine or anything, and they're the lead ones with the vaccine, and most of the other big pharmaceutical companies don't even want to try that approach of mode RNA.
So here's why they call it a vaccine. If you can pretend under the law that it's medicine, then you have freedom from liability and you can get all sorts of government money and protection. Mm-hmm. And that's why it's a fraud to call it a vaccine. But if you look at the profits of being able to get people to call it a vaccine are, it increases your profits by many hundreds of billions of dollars. And of course, protection from liability in a situation where you're going to injure, disable, or kill a lot of people is absolutely essential to any kind of plan that does that kind of human harm. So, and that's why I think it's very, very important that we not permit them to call them vaccines, because this is not a medicine. This is something else. Right.
Well, and again, of course, that liability protection goes back to the first year that Fauci was in office. He helped to get that through back in. He came in 1985. By 1986, they signed that law. And as you pointed out, if these people were going to go out and they were going to use something like, I don't know, maybe hydroxychloroquine, which has been around for 60 years and costs about $1 a dose, right? We're not going to allow that. But we'll give people $500 million each to develop a vaccine, and then we'll spend billions of dollars from all these other companies and use the military to ramp up production of this, and not only will you get $500 million, but you'll get complete legal immunity if you call it a vaccine.
Well, but here's the thing. You're trying to re-engineer the financial system. So this has nothing to do with health. You're trying to create central control by creating by invoking a medical emergency or a healthcare emergency. That gives you all sorts of police powers. So this is, the war on terror has run its course, and now we need a new way of evoking central powers and police powers. And that's part of what this does. But the reality is, if you're going to build the smart grid into everybody's body and hook us up to the government clouds, you need a pretext, and this is the pretext. And it's one of the reasons they're moving so fast. Normally, if this had been a vaccine, it would take years to do the proper testing and trials. And this is a giant experiment. And the reason I say it's going to kill a lot of people or disable a lot of people is they haven't done any of that. So this is highly experimental, but they're in a rush because last August they approved the global reset. They're proceeding, and they need to get every human being in their plan hooked up to the cloud.
Let's talk about the financial aspect of this when we come back, because that's one of your big areas of expertise. We're talking to Catherine Austin Fitts, Solari.com, and you can find her on Twitter at The Solari Report. We'll be right back. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. We're talking to Catherine Austin Fitts. I want to say real quickly before we go back to Catherine, take a look at InfoWarsStore.com. We've extended our 4th of July sale. We have up to 60% off. We have free shipping, double Patriot points at InfoWarsStore.com. Many very safe, effective, and now affordable more than ever before supplements to help you protect your health. Things like our Winter Sun, which is vitamin D. Vitamin D is going to build your immune system. So if you're concerned about this or about anything else, and you want to make sure that you're in top health, take a look at the products that we have at InfoWarsStore.com. That's what funds us. That's what keeps our independent media here free, and you've been very good to help us with that, so we want to help you, and that's part of what this special is about. 60% off, free shipping, and double Patriot points for discounts in the future at InfoWarsStore.com. All right, going back to Catherine. Catherine, we were talking about where this is all headed, the tracing, the tracking, essentially putting everybody onto the internet, moving towards digital cash. I mentioned earlier in the program how we have the LEAD Act that has now been proposed in the U.S. government to outlaw encryption. So if you all thought that cryptocurrency was going to be your ticket to privacy, well, you better think again, because they are going to outlaw every aspect of privacy. But it's also the contact tracing, isn't it?
So, this is essentially, if you want to step back, this is a conversion of the model under which society is managed. And it's a conversion of the financial model, but it's also a major conversion of the legal and governance model, David. So, so you and I grew up in a world where an individual was sovereign. So an individual had sovereignty, and essentially that sovereignty was granted by divine authority. And what you're looking at is a push to technocracy, whereby an individual has no sovereignty. They are a resource to be used just like a gallon of oil or, a bushel of wheat. So they're viewed as a resource. And instead of having them, resonate with divine authority and all intelligence, you want them to resonate with their smartphone and the machine. So this is essentially going back to a very part of the going direct model is you're going to hook people up. And instead of using markets to manage the allocation of resources, you're going to use AI software in a technocracy. So you set highly centralized rules, by algorithm, and then you proceed to, allocate resources and manage and control people very, very directly with tremendous amounts of micromanagement. And at the heart of it, it's essentially a slavery system where you no longer have currency in the classic sense. Everybody gets a credit at the company store, and if they behave, they get to use the credit. If they don't, the credit gets taken away.
That's right. Well, they love to talk about the Internet of Things, don't they? Where they inventory everything. And we've seen this in the warehouses. They have RFID or other things where they can keep track of every piece of thing in their inventory. But guess what? We are one of those things that they're going to inventory. We are the part of the Internet of Things. That includes us in their world of smart cities and tracking and everything that we do and tracing everything that we do.
So think of it this way. For us to run a train from one coast to the other, you have to have train tracks. And what you're looking at is an accelerated and very aggressive basis to get the train tracks of the smart grid, the hardware, into the last mile and the last inch. And the last mile is getting it into your home and your community, the telecommunications, et cetera. And the last inch is basically getting the brain-machine interface. One of the things I wanted to mention, you mentioned that the gentleman who runs Operation Warp Speed, which is the COVID injection effort by the federal government. I don't know if you know this. Yes, he was on the board of Moderna, but he was also head of research at GlaxoSmithKline.
That's right. For the longest time, of vaccines there, right?
No, his claim to fame was brain-machine interface and bioelectronics.
Oh, okay. Moncef Slaoui?
Right. And there's a 2012 article on Financial Times with detailed descriptions of his leadership in the brain-machine interface area and what brain-machine interface can do. You notice they're always trying to do the test, and now the vaccine's into your head. You ever wonder why?
Well, I had not seen him identified by that. I had seen him identified as a vaccine guy at GlaxoSmithKline. But that makes absolute sense, Catherine, because, Francis Collins has been talking about, and, the boss of Fauci, after he did the Human Genome Project, there was a long article about a week and a half ago where they were talking about transhumanism. And as soon as Francis Collins went from the Human Genome Project to be the manager of the NIH, he began the Human Connectome Project, where he's basically doing brain analysis and how you communicate by brain, because that's going to be part of, they imagine, their transhumanism. So, it always goes back to getting in your brain.
Right. Well, part of selling, by taking the way I started to learn about what I call the injection fraud, is for 10 years I served as an investment advisor to private families and individuals. And many of my clients had had children disabled or killed by vaccines. And, I started to add up the financial destruction that can occur to a family, even a very wealthy family, from vaccine injury. And it was absolutely frightening. In fact, I just saw, I don't know if you've seen recent interviews with Toby Rogers, but he's saying the cost by 2025, the cost of autism to the United States will be in the trillions of dollars. It's very frightening. There's a great mother on the first Vaxxed. Vaxxed and Vaxxed 2 are really must-watch documentaries, but she explained that a heavily autistic child will cost, from the time he becomes autistic to his death, present value of $5 million. Rogers had a lower number for that, but I think the $5 million, from what I saw, was very reasonable. That's the kind of expense that destroys the economics of a family.
And it was completely unknown. You and I never saw that. I mean, the first time I ever knew a kid that had autism was in the mid-2000s. Prior to that,
Right.
never seen it before. Because
Right.
nobody
Now
wants to ask why this is all of a sudden exploding. And when you have somebody who does ask, like Dr. Andrew Wakefield, they come after him. By the way, he has a documentary. I'm going to watch that this weekend at 1986theact.com. It's a dramatization going back and looking at how they got legal immunity and the whole vaccine issue. So I'm anxious to see that. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
There are two things. There's a PrEP Act in 2005 and the 1986 Act, and it's the combination. If you go to Solari and read the injection fraud, I describe them both, and it's the combination of those that gives them tremendous liability. We now have 54% of the kids in America now have chronic disease. And the doctors I trust tell me it's much higher because a lot of the kids can't afford proper testing. So whether it's 54% or 70 to 75%, you're talking about significant depopulation. You're talking about wiping out a population. I call it the great poisoning, and I think vaccines are only a part of it. If you look at whether it's the global spraying or you look at the GMOs or you're looking at the pesticides, I mean, we have, several generations which are literally being physically poisoned, and we can give all sorts of names to the symptoms of poisoning, but that makes it complicated. It's really very simple. We're poisoning each other, and that has to change.
Yeah, and it's a soft kill. And they're doing that. They're killing our economy. I'm just surprised at how rapidly it is accelerating now at this point. And they're getting ready. I mean, they've got billions of these things being manufactured. They're ready to push these things out just by the end of the year to accelerate the damage to people.
But you can't just say they are doing this, because we are doing this too. If you look at the number of people who are implementing, whether it's the pharmaceutical part or the government part or the academic part or the science part or you go on and on and on and on. What you're watching is all of us are helping to implement this. And that means if we can face the fact that we're culpable too, we have the power to stop it.
That's right. And they are able to continue with this and get us to play along with this because they play on our fear. They play on our ignorance. They play on the greed of many people. All of those things roll together, and it makes a very, very powerful combination. All right, we're out of time. Thank you so much for joining us. Catherine Austin Fitts, Solari.com, and you can also find her on Twitter at The Solari Report. And what was the name again, Catherine, of that article about the injection fraud? Was it injection fraud? Injection fraud. At Solari.com. All right, thank you for joining us, folks. That's it for the program.